And it's been, I drove to work this morning, of course, past Kiri's Corner, as we now call it, us Evans Bay residents. I did note the car was there yesterday afternoon, late yesterday afternoon. The car she hit, it was gone this morning. So someone has taken it away. Don't know whose car that is. And I've got to say, there's a deal in politics and scandals, or there's a kind of unwritten convention, and that is you mess up, no doubt Kiri Allan's mess up, but you say sorry, you say I did wrong, you mea culpa, you resign, and you exit stage left. And I think Kiri Allan's done all those things, but there are many questions left besides. Now, we originally had David Seymour slated to talk about their toll road policy, which we will get to, but he joins us now, and of course we couldn't not mention Kiri's Corner and what happened on Sunday night and the consequences of that. So David Seymour joins us by video link now. David, good morning. Welcome to you.
Yeah, good morning, Sean. Good to see you.
All right, we've got an audio link of the video's a bit scratchy, but that's fine. Look, you've criticised the reshuffle that had to follow the resignation of Kiri Allan yesterday. What don't you like about it?
Oh, it just shows the total lack of talent available to Labor. They're now a caretaker government. They've had someone go off the field. They run out of reserves. They cannot field a full team. And it's hard to imagine them really doing anything other than going through the motions until the election. The other thing that's been missed is David Parker stepping down from revenue.
Yeah, I was going to come to that.
You've now got a government that is really just a caretaker until the election. And I think the other thing that comes out of it, if they can barely get to the election, then I don't think that they really have the capability of governing after the election either.
In real terms, I mean, people, Twitter says, time for a snap election. It would make no difference if you called a snap election. Now we're as good as in the campaign period. So there's no need, if you like, to speed any things up or create any problems there. I want to talk about Parker. I thought the Prime Minister was quite cagey yesterday afternoon when asked, was he going to leave revenue anyway? It would appear from an outsider's view that he's got the pip now that the wealth tax was rejected and the so-called captain's call was made by Hipkins. And it's almost as if he's walking away from this administration.
Yeah, and one thing I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer. The Revenue Minister wasn't really doing anything for the remaining 6 weeks or so. So you kind of have to wonder, what was this enormous workload that he was seeking to avoid? I know that David Parker is responsible for this Natural and Built Environments bill, the replacement of the RMA, which is another disaster we won't have time to go into. But he's walking away on the basis of having too much work. But I'm not aware that the Revenue Minister really had much to do at this point.
Is he a lawyer, David Parker?
Yes, he is.
He would have been quite a good interim Minister of Justice, one would have thought.
Well, it's an interesting question, isn't it? That's a very good question. You should be in journalism and politics.
I'll give it a crack maybe sometime down the track, David. Overall, though, look, it is unprecedented, I suppose, what happened with Kiri Allan. I look at you, you've had a young bunch of MPs or a green bunch of MPs. You have had zilch scandal, I think, in the last 3 years. And it's not like a lot of people didn't see the Kiri Allan problem coming. Given that she has done, as I said, the mea culpa, she has stepped aside, she's taken her bumps, do we now need to look at... And I'm loath to say Chris Hipkins is individually responsible for this, but it just seems that a lot of chickens are coming home to roost in terms of building people up with puffery and a generally left-wing media saying she was going to be the next Prime Minister. Well, to any idiot, it was obvious she had major issues.
Yeah, and I'm a bit hesitant because let me tell you a couple of things. One is I don't know her well. I've had a bit to do with her over the years. I think she's a decent person. I think she was quite a capable person. Clearly, something's gone wrong. I don't know what that is, and I don't really think that she or anyone needs us to speculate on that. Look, we wish her well. Obviously, that doesn't excuse that there'll be people out there who are very upset because they've suffered from the harm that drink driving can cause and reckless driving can cause. I think really, as far as she goes, you're best to leave it there because we just don't know. And even if we did know, where was she going? Why was she out there? Why was she driving herself and presumably a self-drive ministerial car? We don't know, and I don't think it really helps to speculate, even if you
or
did
maybe
know the
even
answer to
matters
those
at this
questions.
point. It doesn't even really matter at this point. Okay.
Yeah. But what I would say is that New Zealanders out there sitting there saying we have enormous problems. We have lawlessness, inflation, and division. And instead of being able to solve those problems, the government is busy with itself. It's administratively and personally incompetent to do the most basic things. And probably that's not that bad because actually when they do get their act together, they tend to make things even worse. So, I think that's the real issues that people are waking up to. Not did one troubled person crash their car, but how are we going to get out of this? The only policy relevance I can see is she appears to have crashed an electric car into a ute. I mean, I know Labor have been trying to promote electric cars and attack utes, but this is possibly going too far.
All right, let's stay on the road. Toll roads announced as a policy, or more toll roads, or some policy on toll roads. What is your policy on toll roads? What's the idea?
Well, it's pretty simple. There are places in New Zealand where I think the community should be offered the choice. Wait 30 years, wait a couple of generations, maybe government will build this road, or make an announcement that we would like a road to be built in this place and see if there's anybody in New Zealand or in offshore democratic countries who is interested in investing in building it. There was what seemed like a strange incident about 2 years ago. The Canada Pension Plan offered to build light rail in Auckland. And at the time, everybody thought, how weird is that? Why would you go to another country and offer to build a train set? Now, putting aside whether you actually like the light rail, I think that showed there's a lot of people around the world with a lot of retirement savings looking for projects to invest in. And it may be that there are situations around New Zealand, in fact, I'm quite sure there are, where if the government was to say, look, this is our dream wish list of roads to be built, is there anyone out there who might be interested in building this project and then putting it on a tolled basis, and when you've made your money back, hand it back to people? Now, as long as there's always an alternate free route, then I'm not seeing the downside here. We just need to start being a bit open to the world. We might get, Welsford to Warkworth built. We might get stage 2 and 3 of the State Highway 29 west out of Tauranga done. Perhaps we could have got Penlink at Whangaparoa built 30 years earlier this way. Perhaps we'll get a second harbour crossing this way. It makes more sense than waiting a generation because the government doesn't have headroom on its balance sheet.
All right. You said Western democratic countries. The Chinese actually, I understand, have offered on numerous occasions here in New Zealand in our recent history to do major infrastructure builds for us, and we've always said no. What's wrong with the Chinese road?
There's nothing wrong with the Chinese road. There is something wrong with the Chinese system of government. Unfortunately, we have to be realistic that when we signed a free trade agreement with China in 2008, I think all people thought that a bit of trade, a bit of commerce, a bit of exchange of people through international students, and China would eventually become a liberal democratic country like us. Now, we've done the trade, billions and billions of dollars, but if anything, they have consolidated power around one person and gone further away.
Still a cheap road, David. It's still a cheap road or some cheap infrastructure. What's wrong with that?
what's wrong with it is if you go up to a Pacific Island nation, talk to some of the people in government up there, and talk to them about what happens when suddenly the project goes wrong, or there's debts, or maybe you can't pay. Then all of a sudden it comes down to sovereignty. And while New Zealand is a bit more robust than
you can't pick up a road and take it back to China, though, David, can you?
No, but you can do other things like say, well, you guys aren't paying, therefore, we would like some sort of recompense.
Yeah.
And by the way, we've got a few people fishing just north of New Zealand. If you don't mind, they're going to keep doing that. So those are the kinds of things that I would be concerned about.
All right. I've got a text here. In Tauranga, we've been paying for a number of toll roads. Our roads are a disaster. Potholes everywhere. Though we have extra bike lanes not being used and road lanes removed. That's from Kaz. Are toll roads a panacea to every transport or infrastructure problem this country has? Because I'm thinking not.
Well, I don't think they are either, and we're not selling them as such. To respond to Kaz, it's certainly true that when it comes to existing roads managed by NZTA or Waka Kotahi, you've got a real problem that their priorities are wrong. It's all about bike lanes, it's putting speed humps, it's not about clearing potholes. We agree with all of that, and that needs to be changed. But the point we're making with this policy is that there's another kind of problem, which is roads that don't exist at all. And Stage 2 and Stage 3 of State Highway 29 to the west of Tauranga, that's a great example of where you could actually do something more like the Tauranga Eastern Link, a nice, smooth, straight, double-lane, fast road that gets people where they want to go. So I'd put it to you that, yes, you've got toll roads, and they're working very well in the Bay of Plenty. You've also got roads that aren't toll roads, and those are where the problems are. I think we could fix that.
I think there's also an argument that through various, a galaxy of taxes that are levied on us, many New Zealanders might feel we are already, or we have already paid, and are paying in an ongoing way for a decent roading infrastructure. And the government has simply failed to deliver on its part of that deal. They might look at a toll road for anything decent in way of infrastructure as essentially a new tax, David.
Sure, they might do, but I think we're making the point that you get something extra in this case. Most of the time you pay tax and the transaction is pour your money into a huge hole, some stuff comes out, no real connection. Here it's as simple as, here is this option, if you drive on it you pay, if you don't, you don't. The question is, should that option or choice exist? And we say it should. And I think if you look around the world, in Ireland, 35% of their highway network was built the way that we propose. If you go to Sydney, they have a 110-kilometre ring road, which they call the Orbital, around Sydney City. That took 20 years to build, and most of it is built by public-private partnerships with tolls. So, I think ultimately New Zealand's got a fish or cut bait here. We've got to decide if we want to get with the program and be part of the modern world and have first world living standards, or do we want to keep bumbling along with Waka Kotahi, doing a bad job, can't afford it, and just waiting a generation to get stuff built.
And dropping 26 million on a main office upgrade.
Also stupid. But,
yeah. All right. Where would, or where does ACT envisage would be, the most fertile ground for a PPP toll road?
Well, I think that triangle between Auckland, Tauranga and Hamilton is an obvious place where you've got a lot of population growth, a lot of demands, a lot of trucks. People are willing to pay if there is the road available. The other area that I'm a bit biased because I'm from there, but Northland, the only real economic development policy for Northland is called 4 lanes to Whangarei. If you don't do that, forget it. But actually, once you start to look around the country, the whole of central Otago, massive demand, heaps of tourists want to drive there, prepared to pay, but who's actually going to support developing this stuff? So, you could actually go around the country And in basically every area, you can see examples of where there's probably projects that people would pay to use that could make money, but the government is not going to fund and finance them in your and my lifetime. So how are we going to get it done? And ACT proposes writing the wish list, open up to the world, invite people to build, toll, and eventually give it back. And if that gets us more options and more choices, fantastic.
All right, thank you for explaining that policy. Look, while I've got you here too, a little bit of a kerfuffle with one of ACT's founding fathers, Roger Douglas, last week. Have you heard from Roger since all of that brouhaha or not?
No, I haven't heard from him.
What do you make of what he was saying?
Look, in a way, I feel honoured because the thing about Roger, he's the ultimate revolutionary. He's actually attacked the leader of every party he's been part of since Norman Kirk. So he used to white ant Norman Kirk when he was a Labour MP in the early 70s. Roger Douglas has been doing this for 50 years. Now, I've been leading ACT for about 8 years, I think, 9 maybe. He's never, until now, white-anted or attacked me. And I was starting to wonder, is it me? Have I done something wrong? Has he lost the touch? But it turns out that Roger's still attacking the leader of whatever party he's part of. And I feel, kind of relieved that I haven't been left out of that.
All right. And I must say, on this program, he clarified, he says, I'm a swing voter between National and ACT. It wasn't like he was going off the reservation completely, though he was rewriting history to me, David. He said flat tax wasn't the precursor or the straw that broke the 84 Labor government's back. That David Longy, it wasn't the big issue.
Yeah, well, there is something strange about it that, we are actors campaigning to have lower, flatter taxes. We make no apology for that. It would be a better system. We would find ourselves as a better country if we were to do that. And funnily enough, what we're proposing is much milder than the absolute flat tax he proposed in 1988. So he lost his job as finance minister. He died in a ditch over a more radical policy than anything ACT is promoting today. And now he's bagging us for proposing a tax that is flatter than Labor, but not actually flat.
Is he still a member, signed up member or not?
Look, I don't actually
You want to check
know.
that. And look, Kaz has come back at you. Kaz has come back at you, David Seymour. Sorry.
Kaz, what's going on?
Sorry, Mr. Seymour, but Route K in Tauranga paying road tolls for 10 years. They recently increased the price and potholes everywhere. And you're asking us to pay for more between Tauranga and Auckland. Don't mind paying if the upkeep of roads is actually being done. So just because it's a toll road doesn't mean it doesn't have potholes, right?
Well, first of all, I actually, every bit of feedback I get about the TEL is that people love it. When I've been on it, it's been great. So, Kaz maybe lives there and maybe you're right and I don't know what's going on there. But what I would say is that's quite different from the experience of the TEL that everyone else shares. It's also quite different from the Northern Expressway, which is the other toll road in New Zealand. These roads have been a big success. And I also just point out that, the amounts of time that people save, people using the TEL are calculated to save almost 1 million hours a year by going on that road instead of the earlier alternative. So I guess, Kaz knows if there are potholes there. Kaz knows it because they are going on the TEL because they're one of the people that are saving nearly 1 million hours a year. So I don't know. I mean, Nothing's perfect, but it seems to me like it's a better option.
And toll road or public road, we shouldn't drive drunk and we should do what the police tell us, shouldn't we?
That is right.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. That is David Seymour, leader of the ACT Party. We covered a few things there now.